Hi, everybody. We had a great day, and so much is happening behind the scenes because of great veterans, because of patriotism, because of love for the country, and the institutional support that we have been getting is incredible. And it is a fight. It's not so. The battle has not been, and make sure that everything is working and I can start from the beginning. Yep. Very good. Okay, so we are at day 1927 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And he was taken to the arms room. That's what we believe, the arms room, because the evidence confirms that. The evidence says that. And, when the general says no expenses spared, renovate that arms room to the fullest, and of course, when you go on to Fort Bliss, so many things need to be renovated. Why would an arms room in Richard's building need to be renovated with no expenses spared and no procedures followed? No, right. So, and not notifying us, right? Not notifying us. Um, the cover up was very, very obvious, very real. His life was taken from him. We posted the seal that was on the door. We made a video out of it. Anything to get the public's attention, because we are a government that is of the people, by the people, for the people. And it's not by Congress, it's not by the president, it's of the people and by the people and for the people. The president's not a king, and the Congress is not a king. And um, so we have had to work day in and day out to uh, notify the public, because of course, this case has been covered up. There's been something called shadow banning of our live streams. I remember after J6, I was banned, and I figured out a way to thwart the ban on Facebook. The army had given me a shield because I refused to wear the mask. They gave me this shield, and I thought to myself at night, well, I think it was an angel coming to me. I really believe in angels all through this. I've gotten tips by angels. That's how we figured out who Nadal Baim was. I mean, it was a miracle, and miracles happen because of God's actions, right? God's actions. And so, it just came to me, put on your shield and you can do your live stream. And so I put on the shield and I could do my live stream, and I was supposed to be banned for a whole month. And as soon as I put my shield on, the facial recognition could not read my face and then allowed me to do my live stream. So that was really a miracle. And of course, finding out who Nadal Baim, the Palestinian arms dealer in our son's case, who is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM of our son's command. That was and he's connected to the cartel. He's connected to Arturo Alba. He's connected to Willie Moya. He's connected to Manny Chavira, who is the chief of police of the ISD, without really having a peacekeeper's license. He was put in there because he's cartel. He's just part of this cartel thing, and of course, Gustavo Sanchez, uh, the Texas Ranger that was assigned to us, is family to Manny Chavira and Nadal Baim. They're all family. Um, and, it's just the connections we have laid out in graphs and pictures and everything, and put and music, everything, poems, whatever it takes, to because I know as a teacher, just reading articles is not enough. You have to see the pictures, you have to see maps, you have to see collages and all of that, to the graphs, and in order to learn all the connections of this network, this very evil web that is connected, of course, to, I would call it the funeral cartel, the funeral mortuary cartel, the Mormon faction funeral mortuary cartel, that is absolutely uh, also connected to the narco cartel. Um, and, so we know that Richard was reporting on all of this. He was targeted. We know that the military is also involved in all of this because they targeted Richard. They abused their position. They used the UCMJ to retaliate against Richard. And we know that one of the prime suspects, well, the prime suspect is Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader, whose family member, Tavita Nusa, was at the time a CID agent there on Fort Bliss, and he has since had his badge removed. Um, uh, and of course, uh, Dallas Hart's mother is also prime suspect, Leilani Hart, who needs to be arrested ASAP because she confessed in a notarized affidavit that she turned in to facilitating the worst type of crimes against children and failing to report that for decades, So, and much more. She has immigration problems and everything. So she needs to be arrested ASAP. There's just no question about it, none at all. Um, and so to get this kind of, after over 5 years, right? Or 5.5 years, to get this kind of institutional support from President Trump in August, the letters, and you have to read between the lines of the letters. Um, the letters are just so powerful because of the intelligence that it gives us, the intelligence briefing that it gives us, and uh, that he's not negotiating with these cartel, and that Richard is absolutely a hero, a national hero, and you don't mess with U.S. Army soldiers, because Richard, when his life was taken from him on Fort Bliss, they stole his body. They stole his body, which is, you know, um, the indications that we're getting is that they did it through tunnels. But of course, they had they had well, Leilani Hart had an intimate relationship with a lot of people, and what we've been told is that it's also with the director of emergency services at the time, who controls all the gates and the passes and everything, for that, and that was uh, Kane, right? Director Kane, Thomas Kane. So, they had they had the ability to steal Richard's body off of Fort Bliss through tunnels or just by tampering with cameras then, um, because they had an ally in Thomas Kane. So they had an ally within the CID, right? Because Tavita Nusa was leaking Richard's file to Leilani Hart. We know that. We have a witness for that, whistleblower witness for that, that absolutely was turned in. And of course, I think that made, well, I know it did, made Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe very nervous, but they, of course, went in full force retaliation and cover up mode to cover up the whistleblower in Richard's case that identified the prime suspects, that identified the leaking of the files. And this is, uh, you know, every day to tell the story, to collect the evidence uh, that we know is true, right? We know it's true, and the evidence keeps piling up, corroborating everything that we've been saying because there's so much evidence for it. There's so much. And, uh, but everybody is different, and some things will um, then, trigger or uh, make someone understand what's going on here, be it the 500,000 children that were trafficked through Fort Bliss, uh, be it all of the drugs, the substances that have been trafficked, and that those drugs were being brought onto Fort Bliss to compromise our soldiers, being brought into the barracks to compromise our soldiers. That tells you that the leadership sucked. I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's no other way to put it that they, well, I guess you can say they're traitors. They're traitors. There's no excuse for the leadership to not have beautiful barracks and cleaned up barracks and regulation abiding barracks because we give them everything. We give them everything. It is interesting that Woody Hunt controls like 80% of the housing for our military, from what I understand. And he is, really um, he's a prime suspect to me. He's a prime suspect because he's the none of this would happen if he didn't want it to happen. Because when you're a billionaire like that with that kind of control over the city, over Juarez, over that border area, over the politics in Texas, and Texas is huge. Texas is one of the most powerful places on earth, and to have power over it like that because of its huge economy. Um, none of this would be happening if Woody Hunt had good intentions, but he doesn't. He doesn't have good intentions at all. He's rotten. He's rotten to the core. He's um, the what he has allowed to happen is so despicable and so egregious. Um, the manipulation of our military, the manipulation of our politics. Look at you had Tony Gonzalez, Representative Tony Gonzalez, that wanted to report him, and the next thing you knew that he was not reporting him, and the next thing you knew his girlfriend, even though he's married, so he's committed treason against the family. His girlfriend was lit on fire. She also had a husband and a child, and she died. She's dead now, and you know, he thinks that he can continue with that happening in his life. And this is why the people need to know all of this, because we have to lift our standards. We have to lift our standards. And the only way we're going to lift our standards is that we get information to understand the consequences of what is going on, right? And to know our power as the people of the country. And if you give your power over to people that are illegally in this country, right? Or have bad intentions for this country, um, then our life is going to be full of chaos and crime and terrible, terrible things, like what has happened with Plenitud Crematorium, where you have a uh, funeral mortuary uh, cartel, really narco cartel, that infiltrates to the highest levels in Chihuahua, because um, and all the people know it there. All the signs tell you that, and of course our evidence, which is um, the higher level intelligence, absolutely confirms that Maru Campos is in on this, that her pan party is compromised by the cartel, that they are part of the Sinaloa El Chapitos cartel, and that her mother had oversight, but she was in omission. They call it omission, which what it means is that Plenitude Crematorium didn't have the proper licensure, no oversight. She allowed them to operate. That rat infested, rotting body, um, uh, narco dumping ground, body dumping ground. That was all done by the OK and participation, right? It's a participation if she allowed them to operate. Uh, you know that kind of um, disposal, rat infested. It's just disgusting. It's so bad, y'all. It's so bad. And we're talking about disposing of bodies that have been tortured. We're talking about disposing bodies that their organs have been harvested, that their babies have been ripped from them. We're talking, we need to know if some of them were babies, because, when you have like 17-year-olds performing illegal C sections, things can go wrong, right? Things can go wrong. Um, and that's been all confirmed, right? That El Diablo was doing this, and her family member working for Beto O'Rourke, the owner of Plenitude Crematorium, the narco rat infested hellhole, um, living right next to Beto O'Rourke in El Paso, and his mother in also a very upscale neighborhood in an upscale house that registered to Cano Still Inc. Cano Still Inc. So, um, you know, he's living in Braus, as my grandmother would say, while families are grieving in Juarez, meeting on the Santa Fe Bridge, which connects both El Paso and Juarez. You can walk right over. El Paso and Juarez are Siamese sister cities. They're connected. There is a fence in between them, but there are bridges there. One of those bridges that connects them is the Santa Fe Bridge, and these grieving families were absolutely crying for justice, and naming names like Mario Campus's mother, Maria Eugenia Galvan. Um, so this is um, support again. This is support again because they wouldn't do that in Mexico if they didn't have support. If they, because they don't have the freedoms that we have, so they don't have the press support. Even though we don't have press, but uh, it's a little bit tighter there. It's even tighter there. So of course, with President Trump being the new sheriff in town, he's the one that revealed all this. Of course, with Cesar Peniche, he was the prosecutor at the time. His house has been raided, $20 million mansion house in a very, very upscale area in Chihuahua. So of course, the narco kingpins, one that was in charge of all the tunnels, he was captured. So yeah, uh, all of them extradited. I mean, you're talking dozens, dozens and dozens um, of cartel being um, captured. And, so there's been a lot of talking going on. Of course, El Mayo being like probably one of the biggest, El Chapo El Mayo, the son of El Chapo. And it is the El Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel that are part of the PAN party, which is the governing party in Chihuahua right now. So, all of this is, of course, Scheinbaum came up and told Mario Campos, the governor, you're done. Really, she said, you're done. Um, and so, a lot of things are happening behind the scenes, and there is some deadlines coming up that are very, very important that we're looking forward to. We'll see what happens with those deadlines. Um, from certain things happening that will absolutely help our case. Absolutely help our case. So let me see if I can play something for you. See if I can. Um, yeah, there it is. Okay, let me see if I can do this.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Okay, that was President Trump. That was a doctored video by BBC. BBC. It just one thing that it tells you is that why would they go to all the trouble to doctor a video? BBC is Great Britain. Why would they go to that much trouble to doctor a video of January 6th um, of President Trump to, instead of him saying, we're going to support our Congress, they got him, they doctored it for it to be fake news, right? Fake news to say that he's going to go there and fight. Well, this is very personal to us because we were there. We were there on January 6th. We were there. We were listening to his speech. It was very, very cold. The speakers had been sabotaged, so it was very hard to hear. Okay, it was very hard to hear. Um, you had to get up really close to hear him. That's when he's speaking at the White House, the eclipse. And, so it was very, you could tell that, what is it, over 300 or close to 300 bad actors were there in the crowd to sabotage. You could tell that they were. And of course, it's all kind of coming out now. Even with the pipe bomber, the pipe bomber is now a female. They have identified the pipe bomber through AI, through the gate, which is really fascinating for us. And I'm going to go down this little rabbit hole and then come back to President Trump. But what they did with the pipe bomber for January 6th, and she turns out to be part of the CIA, FBI, right? That this is a mutiny, okay? That this was a mutiny. And I can tell you right now, I know it was a mutiny because I was there and I was working the crowd. I was working the crowd because I was handing out hundreds of prayer candles for Richard, and I was handing out hundreds of flyers for Richard and talking to people about our son's case. And so I met a lot of people, and I can tell you right now, I know that there were bad actors there. I've said it from the very beginning that there were bad actors there and that they were trying to get us to come close together to try to get us to trample, because that's when they started um, uh, uh, shooting the tear gas at us. But, these are patriots that went there. President Trump has his support are patriots. They're absolute. I can confirm that because I was there. A million people. Of course, you had bad actors that were trying to sabotage. It didn't work. It didn't work. They had chaos up at the Capitol. They tried everything they could to get that chaos. Okay, and you're talking about a million people, and they had to fabricate. They were so desperate because of um, uh, the perfect speech that President Trump gave, that they had to doctor the speech. Okay, they had to doctor the speech. He was not inciting any kind of violence. There was never any inciting of violence there from him, um, or the patriots. The people that were inciting the violence were the mutineers. The mutineers that were had the had these tear gas bottles, I mean, and trying to get us angry or whatever. But it just didn't happen in the area that I was at. It didn't happen. And I know they've lied about how a couple of the people were killed. Um, and so many people that were walking into the Capitol, they were waving us up there, y'all. They were waving us. I didn't go up there, but they were waving us up there. They were waving us in. They wanted, there was instigators there. There was no doubt about it. Now it's proven, and now it's proven. Now it's been confirmed, and now even the doctoring of President Trump's speech is now confirmed, and BBC has now had to admit it. They admitted it, and those responsible, the boss, the highest people in BBC, and BBC is big, y'all. BBC is, these are big jobs. They make a lot of money. Well, he had to resign. So you work very, very hard to get in this place, and then you do these evil things. And then, and I think that more than just resign, he needs to be held accountable for what he did. Because so many people went to prison, their lives were ruined because of the lies that the media and of course the mutineers were telling during that time, and it's all coming out. And this is important to this case because it corroborates that the target always was President Trump. And because Richard was a federal witness in favor of President Trump's policies, he was a target. He was a major target. And I just want to make that clear because the Walmart mass shooting, the major target, and this is whether you support President Trump or not, it's all about the evidence. The evidence confirms that the target of the Walmart mass shooting was President Trump. That was ultimately, he was the target to affect the election, to put out false narratives, and, uh, and hurt his character, with fake news, with total fake news. So they were fabricating. And now you have BBC proving that they were fabricating once again, because we've proved it over and over again with the Walmart mass shooting. And also that they did that to Richard, that El Paso Matters also put out fake news, along with some other media, about our son. They put out fake news about our son to discredit him, falsely discredit him, so that people wouldn't know what a hero he is, that he was a whistleblower, that he deserves the respect of the entire nation, as President Trump said in his letter to us. So, that is a huge indication that um, that there is a lot of pressure for BBC to admit they were wrong, for BBC to fire those responsible, and the next step is accountability. Um, that tells you there's a lot of pressure, and that pressure is being exerted in Juarez, in Mexico City, with Scheinbaum. That's why Scheinbaum went up um, to Juarez to tell Maru Campos, "You're done. You're absolutely done." And there's just a lot of pressure being exerted from the institutions to get Richard's remains, and that is where we are right now. And that's why the stories about the confirmations about the organ um, trafficking, the organ harvesting coming out of DNI, confirming that now, for the years we've been told that this is what's happening, but now it has been confirmed that this is, and now we know how they did it, with through this funeral mortuary cartel network. Okay. And that goes to university hospitals, the black market for all of that. That's going to be coming out too. And it's big money. And one of the biggest monies for that is the corneas, because, people want the corneas, they want to see. And they make a lot of money off of the corneas. Um, and then, of course, the kidneys, liver, heart, pancreas, the skin. Skin is a big one too. So, this is what's been happening. And you have 500,000 children being trafficked through Fort Bliss, so many people being trafficked, and some of them not making it. There are organs being harvested, their babies being ripped from them, and their bodies being dumped at places like and Plenitud Crematorium. And so, because of the connection of the owners, the history of these funeral homes being so connected to Richard's case. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that's all going to be coming out. The ownerships of the funeral homes, and their intermarriages and things like that, who they belong to, and and this is why Bill Hicks is still very, very important. He's still very relevant and everything because he was a lawyer. He was the lawyer for Purchase Funeral Homes, and clearly he did everything he could to obstruct this case. Okay, and the Walmart mass shooting. Okay, everything he could. So he's a very important figure in all of this, and it will come out um, who's behind all of this. And of course, because the connection is so thick, so heavy, so confirming that Richard's remains, partial remains, ended up at Plenitud Crematorium. And so we're in the negotiation for his body. We still have not had a memorial for him. We still have not had a funeral for him. We have refused that. We had to fight to refuse that because the Army wanted to pressure us. Um, um, like I guess it was 2 years ago. I guess it was. I have to get the exact date, but they gave us like 48 hours to get to El Paso because they were going to have a memorial for Richard. And we said, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not going to have a memorial for Richard. They were going to give us 48 hours to do it. We had to work like crazy because we had to force them to not have the memorial for Richard, and they didn't. So they didn't mention his name, and we're very, very grateful for how that all came to be, how we won that victory. So it's been one victory after the next, and this hell, and this hell that we have been put in, and so we want our son's remains. We want a proper funeral. Um, and I would recommend, I'm at the point right now from everything that I know, from everything that my family knows, and especially from my husband, since he's a retired physician assistant. Um, no cremations, no cremations, because the bodies, if they're cremated, that's a destroying of evidence. And you're talking about um, bullet wounds and trajectory of the bullets, the type of bullets. You're talking about destroying a body that um, may have had their organs harvested, their babies ripped from them, and the evidence then destroyed, right? Burned, um, and of course they have chemicals and all of this stuff. It's just been hell to have to go through this and to learn about this and to talk about this and to know that Richard's remains were brought there. It's just it's nightmarish, absolutely nightmarish, and that this group would do such a thing, you know. But it's a lot of money, y'all. It's a lot of money, and they do it for the money, and that means that they have no love for humanity, no love for their countries, be it Mexico or the United States, no love for the future, no love, no love for anything. I mean, they're just absolute demons that do this. So, money's not everything, right? Money's not everything. You don't sell your soul. You just don't sell your soul, and this requires selling your soul. It's just that gruesome. It's just that evil. Um, so to know that what they put Richard through, and that I know a lot of souls are crying out, right? I know a lot of souls are crying out. They're not at rest after being put through something like this. They're not at rest. They want justice. And that's why I know that Richard is haunting these people, absolutely haunting them and crying out for justice. He is not at rest, y'all. Okay. I can tell you that right now. And we really pray that, like the miracles that we've had through all of this, that we will have a miracle of finding his remain. Well, we know where they're at, to force that, like Cesar Hargi, like Maru Campos, like the agencies that were in charge, like Carlos Manuel Salas. Carlos Manuel Salas, the prosecutor for the North Zone in Chihuahua, he's absolutely responsible for all of this. And then, of course, our embassy there, or the consulate there, and over uh, in El Paso, you had the county judge, Ricardo Samaniago, dining, fine dining. I mean, we're talking about very expensive dining with the owner of Plenitud Crematorium. And now we have the worker that was there, that was arrested, is now dead. Okay, is now dead. That's witness tampering in my book, because and that's in the custody of Carlos Manuel Salas. Okay. There seems to be, this is a mutiny. This is not about Republican Democrats. This is about um, preserving this lucrative, demonic business over the border. Okay. Back and forth, and in our military, because they really extort a lot of funds from the military. They really abuse it. Um, it's very clear. So the institutions now, it just, we have 1 year since President Trump took office. So much has happened, securing well, building up a legitimate economy instead of having a cartel economy there in El Paso is really important. So that's what he's been doing. I could tell through all of this. Of course, the designations against the cartels, those have been absolutely uh, jaw dropping important in all of this. No negotiation for these people. The tariffs have been very important for this. Um, uh, the working along the Fiscalia there in Juarez has been very, very important in these searches and everything. And so, and many of you know what's been going on with all the arrests and the extraditions, and then the plea deals with the extraditions. There have been those too because of information. So the institutions are absolutely going in the right way. Of course, there's been blocking of appointments, a lot of blocking of appointments, a lot of bad actors like Connell Witten in the FBI. He's so dirty, and he's in there. We know about Arctic Frost, the very dirty actors there. Um, uh, Leading it out of San Antonio, a Mormon faction member leading it out of San Antonio with uh, authority over the FBI office there in El Paso. So that all of that being discovered and dealt with, the people being uh, fired, right? And not enough. And then, of course, this government shutdown that I believe now is ended. I believe that that is the news that's been coming out, is that it's ended. So that has a lot of big implications for the federal investigation, and moving forward in Richard's case has a lot of implications. So they had a good reason to keep that government shut down for like a month, right? Because that gave a little time for this regrouping of of the funeral homes. Maybe. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they're panicking. I'm telling you, these funeral homes are panicking. So that means that something is happening in behind the scenes, and there it's we're getting to the bottom of this to get our son's remains. Won't that be an amazing day when we get Richard's remains, even partial remains? It'll be an amazing day, and so that's what we're working for, to have that. So, and that requires also to let everyone know what's going on, because none of these agencies, nobody is moved unless the people move them, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it's of course, the crying out of the victims, and also the people the people demanding justice that that uh, moves the wheels of justice. And so we really appreciate you sharing, and liking. Um, I have nothing monetized. This is all for our community, for our family, for our future, for our countries. Um, so when I say share, it's just for those reasons. And most importantly, for God, right? For God, to glorify God. Anytime you're fighting for justice, it's glorifying God. And so share, and talk about this to friends. And please like and please comment. Um, and we really appreciate all your comments. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.